Gaze reading where the greats drop by. Trendy authors tell us all the who, what, and why. Anyone can listen, cause we're spoiler free. Gaze reading, from Pulitzer stars to book club picks, where the curious minds can get their fix. So you say you're not gay, well that's okay. There's something for everyone. Gaze reading.
Hello and welcome to Gaze Reading. I'm your host, Jason Blitman, and I may not be the most Hallmark holiday person myself, but I do love love. And so I wanted to do a special Valentine's Day episode, and I am so excited to be in conversation with Jessica Soffer, the author of This Is a Love Story, this month's Read with Jenna book club pick. You know what makes a very great Valentine's Day gift? An Aardvark Book Club subscription. And as you probably know, I'm partnering with Aardvark Book Club to offer an exclusive deal for first-time members. You can get your first book for $4 if you use the code GAZEREADING when you check out at aardvarkbookclub.com. First book, $4. Such a good deal. Happy Valentine's Day. You can watch this over on YouTube. The link to that is in the show notes, and also you can find the link in the link tree on our Instagram at Gaze Reading. We're also over on Blue Sky. And yeah, I hope you're doing something super fun or not fun to celebrate Valentine's Day. You could do whatever your heart desires because that's what it's all about. I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation. Enjoy. How are you doing? Congratulations on all of the things. This is like such a big couple weeks for you.
It's wild. I mean, it's so different than my normal life. I think that's why it feels so dissonant, because my normal life, I write in a hole for a million years. And especially like this book on and off took me a long time. I mean, my first book came out 12 years ago. So this is a wild time, but it's amazing.
It's obviously not a debut, but 12 years ago, things have changed.
Things have changed. There was definitely none of it. Did I do a podcast? I don't think I did.
Right.
And Instagram was not a thing. I did an event the other night with bookstagrammers. These people have all just, they've also been born in the last 12 years. They're all so young. But I know. It's wild. It's amazing. I mean, it really gives me a lot of hope that people are focusing on books of all the things.
It's a good moment, I think, for books, for authors.
Yeah.
And so when my finished copy of This Is a Love Story came in, it came in without the sticker, capital T, capital S. And on one hand, I'm like thrilled for you, obviously, for being a Read with Jenna pick. But a non-sticker copy of any book club book is a rarity. So I feel like I have a precious gem in my hand.
There's the Barnes & Noble edition has their sticker, and they have end papers that are really beautiful, actually. I love the Barnes & Noble edition. But yeah, there are stickers. I signed some books at McNally Jackson the other day. I don't even know what day it was. And they had a "We Recommend" sticker on it. There was the Jenna seal and then the signed sticker. It looked like a sticker book in the best way.
And then if it wins an award, it'll have an award sticker. Just cover it up.
We're not banking on awards.
What's the title of the book? Who knows what the title is anyway? It's just covered.
It's a sticker book.
So it's a sticker book. So awesome. Oh my God. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. I wore red. You wore red.
I know. I clocked that. I love it. I feel like there are so many things I want to talk to you about because you're a New Yorker and of Central Park, and I want to gush about Julie Bearer because I'm obsessed with her. We could just sit here all day. Okay, you've done the elevator pitch for your book, This Is a Love Story, 100 million times, but for the sake of, let's say it and then move on. What is your elevator pitch for This Is a Love Story?
That's a lot of build-up. I hope I have my elevator pitch.
I've listened to you on so much content. I could probably do it.
You have? Oh, This Is a Love Story tells the story of two people, an artist and a writer, from the time that they meet until the end of their relationship 50 years later. It has each of their perspectives. The woman's name is Jane, his name is Abe, and then the perspective of their son, Max, who struggles with love, has a complicated relationship with love. A woman named Alice, who's a young writing student who comes between them, between the relationship of Jane and Abe. And then there's the perspective of Central Park, which really is a full perspective in the book. And sections from Central Park's perspective contain hundreds of anecdotes of things that go on in the park, people that come in and out of the park in various moments of their lives and various ages. There's the dogs who fall in love in the park. There are the unhomed people in the park. They're everybody coming in and out of the park at all moments of life.
Do you know, I happen to have it right here accidentally. Do you know Todd Doty's Little Pieces of Hope? It is basically a book of lists of things that bring you joy.
Oh,
Happy making things in a difficult world is the subtitle. And it's just literally lists. The fact that the melting of the Wicked Witch of the West is never explained yet quickly accepted. It's just tons of things like that. And when I was reading the Central Park moments of the book, I was like, I could read a 250-page book of just these like micro moments in Central Park. And so that you should do like a little mini companion piece.
you know, it's so interesting you say that because one, I've spent a lot of time in the park recently. I don't live in the city anymore, but I've spent a lot of time there recently, and just it never gets old. The content never dries up, and I feel like I would like to write another book from the perspective of Central Park, but also I wonder what my next weird perspective will be. I haven't found it yet. I'm working on another book and I know the main characters and I know the sort of arc of the story, but I keep wondering, for a little while I thought it was going to be the school gym, but it's a little bit narrow. It's a little more narrow that I can work with. So we'll see, but there might, another weird perspective book might come up.
Love. This is Valentine's Day, very romantic. I feel like I need to tell you about my love story that happened this morning.
Please.
I don't buy Kaiser rolls because who buys Kaiser rolls? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's just not something you have in your home.
Yes.
But I just so happened to last night buy a thing of 4 Kaiser rolls. I was feeling nostalgic or something. And this morning, I was inspired to make a bodega egg sandwich.
I love that.
And I have to say, it brought so much joy. It brought so many memories back. It tasted exactly what you want the bodega egg sandwich to be. And I also don't buy American cheese, but at the store last night, they didn't have the pre-sliced cheddar, which is what I usually get. So and I got American because my husband prefers that. And so it's literally egg, American cheese, and a Kaiser roll. And I was like, this is the taste of New York City, and I'm in love.
I love that. It's so interesting you say that because the other night I was talking to a bookstagrammer who has this account where she creates, I can't remember the name of her account right now, but I'll find it and post it. But she takes the covers of books and cooks based on the cover of a book, but sometimes thematically also.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
she was saying, she asked me what I thought would be the best thing to cook from this book. And we talked about all the takeout, which is a real theme in the book.
Yeah.
I am a foodie. Like my first book was a food book. I was a food writer for years. I had a column. So it's sometimes strange to me that this book isn't more heavily foodie than it is. But I think there's enough. New York food is so particular. And I feel like there's a human experience, a New York City food human experience that feels unilateral and mutual. And part of that is certainly the egg sandwich. And also lo mein is part of it. The smell of those hot dogs, I haven't smelled those hot dogs in years. And when I was walking through the park the other day, so distinct.
I was talking recently about expectations set by smells. And then when you're like intensely disappointed when you taste the thing. And my very first example that always comes to mind is the nuts on the streets of New York. They smell so good. And then you taste them and you're like, this is not as good as it smelled at all.
Totally. What even are they?
What even are they? When I poured my coffee this morning, I was so upset that yesterday I used my Zabar's mug and it was dirty because I wanted to I should have saved my Zabar's mug for today.
Yeah, the book is full of Zabar's. The Upper West Side is even more particular in terms of food, and I feel like the Upper West Side is my food haven.
Yes.
I don't know if Fairway has a role in the book. Fairway has had a role in my life, but I'm not sure Fairway even makes its way into the book.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't think so. But I would just buy a pre-made chicken salad from Fairway and a box of spinach and eat.
The best.
So ridiculous.
I have to say, where we live now, there's no good takeout. There's very limited takeout, very limited food situation, in part because it's a town that kind of closes down in the off season. But how I would yearn for chicken salad and spinach.
Yeah. It's funny because as I'm like thinking about talking to you about love stories and romance this morning, I was like, I have this list sitting next to me of these fantastic rom-coms and movies, and the idea that so many of them are blank and blank was just something that was funny to me.
Mm.
And yet, when I really think about my love stories, it's food.
Same.
I was like, I really think I just want to talk to Jessica about our love of food because
Same.
this is queer.
But when I was pulling together a list recently that didn't end up getting published, I had to take a sharp left and write about something else. But I wanted to write a list of love stories for which the recipient of love was untraditional. Nobody was into that idea. But like do we call it a novel? We call it a novella, Bluettes by Maggie Nelson, where the relationship is with the color blue itself. It's so beautiful. It's one of my favorite books. That's one that I love. A Friend by Sigrid Nunes, where the dog is the love, the main love in the book. And then I was thinking, what would be the food version of that? I don't know if I feel like there's that Nora Ephron book, Heartburn, where food plays a big role and heartbreak plays a big role.
But that's not what the book is about.
Yeah, that's not what the book is about.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have a food relationship with food book that you love?
I don't think so.
I'll write you one. No problem.
Yes, please.
No.
Thank you. Wait, so in this article, what were some of the things that were coming to mind that compelled you to think about writing it?
In the end, the article, which is on LitHub, is about love stories that aren't too sweet. So I wouldn't say they're realistic love stories, but they're love stories where you have to go through the tragic to get to the glory. And not even that the end is glory. It's more like that they're just quite realistic. And there's an element of the bittersweet and the disappointment that is just, I feel like, inherent to any love story at all. And certainly I feel like This Is a Love Story is not a sanguine love story at all. There's a lot of, hopefully it's an authentic representation of what a long-term love is about.
And it's interesting too, because it got me thinking about the difference between a love story and a romance.
Totally.
And I was like annoyed with myself when I had this little light bulb moment, because I was like, that's such low hanging fruit, Jason. Why did that not come to you sooner? Because love stories, and like my sandwich story, that's a love story, right? I didn't have a romance with my sandwich, but I felt deep love for it this morning.
And it's interesting you say that, because I also think that the title has been a little bit of a hot topic. I think a lot of people have been, not a lot, I shouldn't say that, but some people have been initially concerned that the book would be more of a romance than a love story. Even though it's called This Is a Love Story, I think people hear love story and they think romance, which is not what it is. And the novel is a love story, but I think it's also like a loss story, a friendship story, an art story, a New York story. It's like all the things, which I think is contained in the idea of love, not
100%.
contained in the idea of romance. And I'm not even sure, I don't think this book is romantic, except I think that long-term love, like the kind of compassionate, I don't know what the other word would be, like companionary, that's probably not a word, love, to me there is romance in that. Like there is romance in getting old with someone. There is romance in taking care of someone when they're ill, which is what happens in the book. So I think the romance is maybe untraditional, but
there's also something about, can something be romantic without it being romance?
Yes.
And I think the answer is yes, right? Central Park in the fall is romantic.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the character of Max, who's the Abe and Jane's son, he's a real jerk, and he's probably very handsome. And he's the character that we would assume to be the most, he would be the romance character in the book. And yet he flips the whole thing on its head, because he's so upside down. His relationship with love is so upside down. So I think in a way, the romantic part is not the romance part in this book. Like
Are
you said.
you a romantic?
I'm a realist. I think that maybe that's the distinction. I've been with my husband, we've been together, not married, for 20 years. And I love our relationship deeply. But there's not that much like throwing back of our heads and kind of, we've been through a lot and we've seen a lot of stuff together. We've grown up together. And there's more love in what we have than I could ever have imagined getting. But would I say that I see it romantic? And I don't know. I think I feel a little old for romance.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Because I think it requires like some kind of naivete that I think I'm maybe, I don't know. I've crossed the threshold.
That's interesting to me because as a New Yorker, there are so many things that there are magical moments that can happen in New York City that I think remind me that I'm a romantic in ways that I forget. So I don't know. I would challenge what you say next time you spend an afternoon walking around New York.
It might be a semantics thing. I find the world profoundly magical. I find Central Park magical. Like, I am brought to tears all the time by the meaning of things. My cat, my daughter, my dog, Central Park, the snow. Like, these things make me weep all the time. But I don't know if I think of that as being particularly romantic. I think that's like romance for me is maybe aligned with like escaping the world a little bit. Whereas I feel that those sorts of things are the most essential life things and remind me of the sadness of life. And so therefore the utter beauty of life.
I hear you. And I hear what you're saying too about semantics. I'm just like putting together a scenario in my mind where like there's a light snow and you're walking around Central Park yourself and you're looking in one direction and there's a musician playing something that's so beautiful. And you look to the other direction and there's an 80-year-old couple sitting on a park bench holding hands. And you look in another direction and there's a proposal happening down the steps near Bethesda Fountain. Like that to me, I imagine, and I could be wrong, that your first instinct would not be, those poor kids, they're going to get divorced because there's a 50% divorce rate. Right? But that's realist.
Yes.
I think that's why I said I would challenge you saying that. No, I don't want to say that you're wrong. That's
wrong.
very white man of me.
But if you see that scenario as romantic, and maybe it is, then I am 100% a romantic. But to me, that feels like
that's magical.
That's
I hear
magical.
What you're saying
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. Okay. And I guess I find magic to be romantic. But
maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
it's so interesting that I'm figuring out that I'm a romantic now after having written a book about love. But
I know, but as we just decided, it's not a romance.
Yeah, exactly. It's about love.
It's about love.
Yeah.
So much of the book, which when I learned that you had a background in poetry, I was like, dots connected in a way that made the book make A, more sense, and B, like just unlocked so many things. Because I was like, this is like a giant poem and this is amazing. And I was thinking that. And so when I knew that when I had more context, I was like, oh, this is perfect.
Can I tell you something about that though?
Please.
So the other day, I don't look at my Amazon reviews or my Goodreads reviews a lot. Once in a while, there will be a moment of weakness.
There was a pause. and then a personal eye roll.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide how honest I want to be about how it's hard. It's very hard. Yeah. Anyway.
Lots of authors do look.
Yes. I want to be the person that doesn't look because it is gutting. Yeah. There's no good scenario. Even if there are go ahead. 1,000.
I know. I was just going to say, I know exactly what you're going to say because that's what everyone says. They think of the one thing that someone said, even though there are 1,000 reviews that are positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was this one review.
So you were looking at your reviews.
I was looking at my reviews, and there was this one review that's, of course, full of vitriol and a 1-star. But the main thrust of what this reviewer was saying was that, how dare I write a book of poetry? And not offended. This is not offensive, nor does this seem reflective of a 1-star review. I think there's a way in which sometimes book club picks are meant to be one way. People think that they're going to be one way. There's an expectation. And this book is maybe untraditional in craft a little bit, in style a little bit. And I think some people maybe have felt a little bit misled. I don't know why. I love the full breadth of craft in what I read. And I think a lot of us do. But I found that really interesting that the most hateful thing that they could come up with was that this was a book of poetry. I was like, bless you, bring it.
That's the nice compliment. Thank you so much.
Totally.
Please change your star rating because you're lowering my average.
Exactly.
In the book, throughout the book, there's a lot of remembering the beginning of a love story.
Yes.
What do you remember from the beginning of your love story?
You know what's very amazing and has only come to me recently? My parents were together for a long time, not an endlessly long time. They met when my mother was in her 30s and my father was in his 50s. And their relationship started with letters. And my husband and I met in college. We were both in a creative writing, not a creative writing class, an English lit class. And we started emailing And that was the beginning of our relationship, was these long emails. And I think that they're probably on some like college server somewhere that is dead. But I remember that. I remember also, interestingly, not feeling like I thought I was going to feel. Like, I just really loved him, and I thought that he was so wonderful, but I didn't feel like I lost my head in the whole thing, which I have felt before. And those things, at least for me, haven't been sustainable and haven't been the most supportive necessarily and compassionate necessarily. So I remember the beginning feeling like very gentle and very sweet and earnest. And we had that typical college romance where he was an art student, and he would work late nights in the art studio, and I lived across the green. And I remember when the lights would go off in the art studio, he would walk across the green. I knew that he was coming over because the lights would go off. And yeah, it's been amazing. And then there was a lot of toughness. My father was sick for a lot in the beginning of our relationship. We experienced a lot of death together and complicated family stuff. We've gone through it. It's been remarkable.
So this is very interesting simply because of how you identified being a romantic, talking about the naivete of it all. Like, literally, you were describing the beginning of your relationship as being sweet and earnest, right? And those are things that are very naive, I think, at the beginning of a relationship. However, it's so funny the way that perspectives are just so different. I hear you tell me the story of the way your parents' relationship started and the way your relationship started with the letters, and the parallel of that for me is so romantic. And that stays forever. Do you know what I mean? Like, the earnestness perhaps goes away, but the way that it started doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's true.
For me is very romantic.
Yes.
Anyway, I love. Okay, happy Valentine's Day. We have to talk about your favorite love stories in celebration. What are some? What are you recommending? Is it a novel? Is it a rom-com? I have a long list of my own.
Okay. Mine are maybe a little untraditional because they do have an element of darkness to them. So, for example,
bring it on.
I love Ocean Vuong's novel. I can't stop talking about it. On Earth, We're Briefly Gorgeous. So dark and so complex. And in fact, there's a sex scene in that book that was the hardest sex scene I've ever read before. It was almost unpalatable because there was so much hurt and fear and complexity to it. But I just find like the longing in that book so palpable, and longing for love, which to me, like, that's a love story. So that book I just can't get enough of. Call Me by Your Name, I think it's like the most obvious. Maybe is that the most obvious one?
It's so funny. I was thinking this. Literally, I was in the shower last night and I was like thinking through some of my favorites, and it's just so good.
It's just so good.
So you have to mention it.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's like a little cliche. However, it's worth the cliche because it's so good. And the book is so much better than the movie.
The book is so much better than the movie. And I think also I love when the atmosphere, the landscape is a character. And for that book, it's really true. It's like Stealing Beauty. Did you ever see Stealing Beauty with Liv Tyler?
No.
Oh my gosh.
I'm writing it down.
I think they're in Italy. They're in Tuscany. And it's just full of beauty and yeah, exactly. Beauty, sex, all the things. It's incredible.
God. The book, The Safekeep by Yael Vanderwooden, I have been pushing and pushing to anyone that would listen to me, but it is sapphic. Call Me by Your Name.
Oh, I'm all in.
It's like a little twisty. It's a little mysterious. It's very atmospheric. Lots of lesbian sex. And I am obsessed with it. It was so good.
Speaking of lesbian sex, is that not what you expected to happen?
Not what I was expecting, but I'm here for it.
I read All Fours recently and adored it, and remembered having read a Miranda July story that I cannot find, but it came out, it must have been a million years ago, probably like 20 years ago now. And it's about these two young women. They're quite young. They're probably like 18 or 19. And they are hired by this older woman for sex because they're desperate for money. And they're repulsed by her age. And I remember that her age was probably 40, which is why it's so interesting to me that she wrote All Fours, because now she is when she's negotiating that in All Fours, what it's like to be the sort of older-ish woman. But that story was one of my favorite love stories. It was tragic and weird and excellent.
And we don't even know. We don't know what it's called. We don't know if it exists. We don't even, for all you know, you imagined it.
Maybe I imagined it. If it wasn't Miranda July, I would say I imagined it. But that feels so Miranda July to me.
Yeah.
Someone will know it. I also love, there are a lot of short stories that I loved that are love stories. Do you remember your first favorite love story? Like the first one that really felt special to you?
It's so funny because I think realizing the difference between love story and romance shattered that for me. I don't know that I could pinpoint a love story was important to me, though. It's the very first thing that just popped into my head was the movie Matilda. And the love between books and the love between Miss Honey and Matilda, like that for me is a love story.
Totally.
Right. But like when I think rom-com, I can never get enough You've Got Mail.
Oh, that really speaks to me for obvious reasons. In fact, I was meant to be in that movie because I walked by and they were sitting at that cafe on
Cafe Lalo.
It was a Cafe Lalo on 77th and Columbus. I thought I was going to be in that movie. I was probably in high school. I don't know, but
oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, that one was so good, and she was so cute then. She was so Meg Ryan then.
She looked like herself then.
She looked like Meg Ryan. I
know. Those were the days.
And she had a bookstore. That bookstore, why doesn't it exist on the Upper West Side? We talk about this all the time. I had my launch at the Barnes & Noble on the Upper West Side, which is a place that's very dear to me. I used to cut class in order to go to that bookstore. Mm-hmm. But in terms of other bookstores on the Upper West Side, it's tricky.
It was, I believe, inspired by
Shakespeare and Co.
Book Culture.
Oh, Book Culture.
Shakespeare and Co.
Maybe. And the giant Barnes & Noble.
And the giant Barnes & Noble.
Mm-hmm. Which is still there.
Yeah.
Bless them. What would we be without Barnes & Noble?
I know. And they have become the indie, which is weird.
And they're amazing.
Obviously, they're not indie, but
their booksellers are so great. They really know what they're talking about. It is so interesting. There's Amazon and then there's the indie that is Barnes & Noble now.
I know. That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
When that giant thing could become, it's all about perspective.
It's all about perspective.
I recently was in the market for a part-time job, applied to a part-time job at a Barnes & Noble and did not get an interview.
But why? Don't they know what they're missing?
I know. I was like, excuse me? Anyway,
you know too much.
I know it's true. I know too much. What about movies? What are are there romantic or love story movies that you love?
This is going to sound really messed up, but I'm watching Bad Sisters right now.
Oh, I've not watched it, but I've seen it all over the place and I want to.
It's the anti-love story and it's so great. It's so dark and it is a love story between sisters and it's the love story of a place wherever they are in Ireland, Wales. It's so beautiful and but it's really dark and it's like a cautionary tale, I think, a little bit about one, messing with sisters and two, falling in love with the wrong person. It's excellent.
Okay. I have to check it out.
Yeah.
I just watched, oh my God, of course the name is escaping me, but the series with Kristen Bell and Adam Brody.
Adam Brody, yeah. I knew you were going to say that.
So good. I knew you knew I was going to say that.
Yeah, so good.
In doing some Googling just so that my brain wasn't mush this morning, all of these romances are Anne's. Romeo and Juliet, Tristan and Isolde, Antony and Cleopatra, Pride and Prejudice, Bonnie and Clyde, Frankie and Johnny, music and lyrics, Kate and Leopold. I was like,
you must write a paper on this.
I know. So there's a there.
Is there a trifecta love story that you can think of that I can't think of one, but how interesting would it be if there was that? There was that Gwyneth Paltrow series that was very pulpy. I can't think of what it is, and there's a trio in it. Oh, never mind.
In this book festival that I just did, in a conversation with an author, Gwyneth Paltrow came up shockingly. So Gwyneth Paltrow has come up more times in my life in the last 5 days than
is everyone talking? Maybe it's because everyone's talking about skincare because no one wants to talk about anything else. So we all just talk about like jade eggs and skincare.
Oh my God, that's so right.
It feels better.
I got into a fight with my beard trimmer yesterday, and that's all I'm talking about this morning. I'm left with a mustache. That's it.
Do you not normally just have a mustache?
No, I typically sport a little scruff.
Wow.
I know.
What a thing it is to have I was going to say facial hair, but men can change their face the daily. It's wild.
I know, it's weird. And the glasses too.
Yes.
I
I'm
mean,
new
you
to
must know
glasses,
that.
but I die
Oh,
without them now. I cannot function without them. And
me too. Both like literally seeing, but also they are so much a part of me. I love yours.
thank you. I love them too. I cannot drive without them. It's really they're
Yeah.
essential now.
Yeah.
We're the old characters in Miranda July.
Oh my God. Are there underrepresented love stories that you want to shout out about?
There's a short story called Lust by Susan Minot. Do you know Susan Minot?
Oh, no.
She wrote that book. Oh gosh, she was amazing. She wrote something in the 80s called Monkeys. It was a short story collection that was so marvelous. And I feel like she was really important for a while. I think everyone thought she was going to be huge. And then she might have written Stealing Beauty, come to think of it. That's really wild. But then she wrote a book about a very long oral sex. The entire book is fellatio. It's wild. I can't remember what it's called, but I think people found it problematic. And so her career,
How come?
I can't imagine, especially on Valentine's Day, but her career took a turn, I think. But she wrote a book and I can't remember. She wrote a short story. I don't think it was in Monkeys, but it was called Lust. And
Yeah.
it sequenced every relationship this woman had from the time she was very young until the time she was an adult. All of them problematic. Not all of them problematic. Most of them problematic because she herself dealt with some issues. But it was phenomenal. Like in terms of structure, in terms of content, the style. She's so good. She is so good. Underrepresented. That is a love story.
I can't wait. I'm
Mhm.
gonna check that out. We're gonna put out a PSA about this Miranda July article.
Oh, yeah,
We have to find it.
We're gonna find it.
Have we asked her? Has anyone reached out to her?
No, but she's so big.
Everyone's scared of her.
So glad that she exists, that her brain exists in the world. Simultaneously, I'm so grateful not to be her because I think she carries a heavy load. Like in terms of being as creative as she is, I think trying to be a functioning human being in the world and being that creative, I think it's a lot to be Miranda July.
I'm sure you're right.
But she's amazing.
I know. She's amazing.
I also just thought of this Lori Moore. Do you know Lori Moore? She's a short story writer. Oh, she's amazing.
I'm not a short story person usually, but I want to get more into them.
They're so satisfying.
I recently became a New York Magazine subscriber, mostly to practice shorter, longer form. I don't know what because it's like longer form writing, but it's not a novel. That's my goal, is to get into shorter stories.
There are so many good ones. There's so many good ones. And I think the beauty of short stories, at least for me, like when I first started learning to write, was they feel at least imitatable. So you feel like you can replicate them in some way. And of course you can't because you can't replicate a John Cheever story, but there's a way in which you feel like you can. And I think that's actually a really important moment in learning. But there's a Lori Moore story and she is so incredible on the craft level. And it's called How to Be the Other Woman. And it's in the second person perspective, which I love. Some people have a hard time with it, but I love it. And she basically just offers up all the ways to be the other woman. And it's so fantastic, wholly tragic because this woman, of course, it's a singular woman, though it feels universal, is really struggling with that positioning in her life, but it's beautiful.
My list is so long. I have so many things to read.
I know.
But I'm obsessed. And it's a short story, so it'll go by quickly.
Yes. You can probably find that one somewhere. A PDF.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yes. I started this conversation by telling you my love story from this morning with my not bodega sandwich. What would your food love story be right now?
Right now it's winter and it's awfully cold. So some kind of really spicy curried veggie soup situation. I have a friend who's a professional chef and she makes this coconut curry vegetable stew with jasmine rice. That is my dream meal.
That sounds so good.
So good. But it does change seasonally. I'm really like a seasonal eater.
Yeah. I, though, could eat soup year round. I'm such a soup person. A perk of this not job is getting books from publicists and like even reaching out if I see something that I might want. But I clocked that there was a cookbook called Soup Season, and I asked the publicist for it, and I'm obsessed. The best part about this book is not only is it soup recipes, it also tells you like what you can cook when you're over it. So it's, you made this tomato soup. Okay, now here's a great pasta recipe that you could use the tomato soup for. And I'm like, oh, this is genius.
That's genius because leftovers just die.
I know
Yes,
they die.
they die. And it's so tragic. I also, another love story book that I could write would be Everything Bagel toasted with scallion and cream cheese and really good lox. I know. Could you die?
Literally just started one.
I know. Same. There's nothing better in the world.
What is your Upper West Side place of choice? I mentioned Barney Greengrass to someone the other day, and they like wagged their finger at me, and they were like, "No, it's Murray's." And then they said something, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. There's like a turf war."
Yeah, I imagine there is a turf war. Barney Greengrass, I love, especially because of the atmosphere. Like the people who work there have been there since 1902 and have been cutting the same fillet of salmon since then, there's something to be said about that. My parents did this thing many years ago where they used to try the gefilte fish at one of 5 places every year to see which had the best gefilte fish, which is probably like grotesque to a lot of people.
Spoiler alert, it was no one, because that's disgusting.
But it was like a really kind of loving tradition. And so I had no interest in the gefilte fish, so I would always get the alternative, which in many cases was the bagel and cream cheese. And spoiler alert, and like maybe very disappointing to some, Russ and Daughters is my holy grail.
Oh, no. Disappointing would be if you were like, it was Einstein's. Like,
no, but I mean, it's not an Upper West. I don't know why they're not on the Upper West Side. It feels like they're like missing their holy land, but Lower East Side. But their lox is singular.
I think there's a Russ and Daughters in a museum on the Upper West Side now?
No, is it in the Whitney or in the Guggenheim? It's somewhere, yes.
Right.
But Upper East.
I'm confusing my upper sides. Jessica, I could sit here and talk to you all day.
The best. So fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Do you have Valentine's Day plans?
We are not very... It's so funny. As romantic as I am, I love a spontaneous romance, right? Write me I don't like gifts. Write me a card. I don't need the pomp and circumstance. I just want you to like do a little nice, kind gesture. That's my brand.
Find yourself some soup.
Yeah, I know. I should get like a good Monzamel soup and warm my insides. What about you? Do you have Valentine's Day plans?
Somebody gave us a gift certificate to Joe's Stone Crabs. So we ordered them from Goldbelly, and we're going to have Joe's Stone Crabs, which seems amazing.
How fun.
The concern that has all of a sudden come about that my husband and I are really concerned about is whether or not we get the sauce. Because if we don't take the stone crabs, I don't need them.
I bet you could look.
Otherwise, what would we do?
What would you do?
We've tried making it.
Should we like get them on the line right now?
Could we phone a friend?
I know. Oh my God, that would be tragic. That would ruin Valentine's Day.
He would be fine. I would not. I don't want the stone crabs without the mustard sauce.
Oh my God. Do you still write letters to each other? No, probably not. Your email.
We do. Like, actually, we do. Like when we
pick
write
up the kid. Don't forget.
When we write each other cards, they're like lengthy and full of heart. And my daughter writes us notes all the time. She just is learning to read and write, and she's a good little writer, and she writes us notes every day, all day long. It's her love language.
Her love language. That's so cute.
Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you find a good soup.
Thank you. Oh my God, I hope the sauce comes.
Me too. I'll keep you posted.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I promise I have an ask out to her to see whether or not the sauce arrived. This is very important. I'm losing sleep over it. And if any of you have even heard of that Miranda July story, please DM me, shoot me an email, hello@gaysreading.com. We need to know what it is. So thanks for your help in advance. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Bye.